Welcome to Let's Grab a Cup podcast. This is where we talk about leadership, authenticity, resiliency. We provide a place to hold space for one another. I'm your host, Adam Sturgeon. So why don't you grab a cup of coffee or tea or whatever suits you at this moment. Let's dive in. All right. Well, so welcome to Let's Grab a Cup podcast.
Take two.
We didn't record the first intro, so now we got it. All right. My name is Adam Sturgeon, and I'm sitting today with my friend, Danielle Quinones. She worked with me. We were partners in the car for a few years, and now we both get to be supervisors and sergeants at our department, which is really fun. Danielle has 16 years on as a police officer, and she spent the last 2.5 years as a sergeant working various assignments in the field, as well as now working at Department Operations Center with all the COVID stuff going on. Danielle has done numerous special assignments from working narcotics and gangs and even vice, special detailed. And then most recently before promoting, she was a RTO and then FTO in the field, which is really cool being able to train new people. So thank you for coming in.
Thanks for having me, Adam.
I know we could do this again. So we talked about the fact that we're doing this little studio setup today, so it's a little different. And so I want to start off like we started talking about is what got you into policing and your background and like where you grew up and why you decided to become a police officer.
So I grew up in La Puente, California, predominantly Hispanic area. I'm obviously blonde hair, blue eyes, but my last name is Quinones, so I actually am Hispanic. But I did stick out like a sore thumb growing up. Anyways, played sports my whole life. It's kind of what's molded me into who I am today. So I never really thought about career. I don't know if that was just me, but as a kid, even high school, junior high, I never thought about, oh, I want to be a doctor or astronaut. I think at one point I wanted to be an archaeologist, but
that's cool.
Yeah, I think that was everyone in 8th grade.
Find some dinosaurs.
Yeah, fossils, you know. So anyways, as I'm growing up, my mom tells me like, hey, what are you going to do after high school? I was like, geez, I never thought about it. So my best friend and I, actually 2 of my best friends, were like, we're going to join the Coast Guard when we graduate high school. Knew nothing about Coast Guard, nothing about the military. It was just like, you're going to be on the water, you've been in the military, people tell you what to do. Sounds right up my alley. So anyways, I actually ended up getting a full ride athletic scholarship to University of South Carolina. Oh, yeah. So I got to postpone my military career and I got to delay it 4 more years.
Did they go in the military?
Who?
The 2 friends?
No.
No, they didn't go in.
No, not at all.
Okay.
The other one actually played softball too. And the other one was like, I was never going to join the military.
So what if they convinced you to go in and then they just didn't come?
I would have gone and I would have been fine.
That's funny.
But yeah, so it delayed it 4 years, but technically I still had to tell my coach who called me from South Carolina. She was like, hey, what's your major? I'm like, major? Like, what does that even mean? Well, what are you going to study for when you graduate college and the career you go into? I'm like, oh, here I am again. So I literally made a list of pros and cons of things that I wanted in a career. It was, I want to wear a uniform. I think it's because like, I really don't like getting dressed. Just like I've been in a uniform my whole life.
Come on.
Playing sports. So I put uniform. I want to be outside.
For those of you who don't know, Danielle's always bougie when she's not in uniform.
I'm bougie compared to other police officers, but I'm really not.
That's funny. Okay.
So it was, I want to be outside. I want to wear a uniform. I want a career that makes me stay in shape. And then the last one was I want a career in which I do something different every day. So I remember it was like some sort of program on the computer. I did it and it came back with 3 options: police officer, post office worker, and PE teacher. And I was like, yeah. And I was like, oh, I could actually do all 3 of these. I would be fine with it.
Interesting. But I don't know why I wouldn't expect. Well, why the uniform with PE teacher?
I'm not sure. Probably because they were like, you know,
same thing every day.
Same thing. Athletic clothes.
Yeah. My sister's a PE teacher. She loves it.
My best friend, one of my best friends is a PE teacher. And I always say like, man, I could do that job too.
Yeah. She loves it.
And she always says like, I could have been a police officer.
That's funny.
So yeah. So that, and then I also remember in 5th grade, I had a DARE teacher, a DARE police officer that would come in maybe every month. She was a canine. I remember, I think her name was like Officer Fowler. I'm surprised that I remember that, but.
Is this in high school?
5th grade.
Oh, okay.
5th grade. And everything like that is cool, but it never crossed my mind. So then when I did that list, I'm like, I'm going to be a police officer. That's what I'm gonna do. So I majored in criminal justice, and here I am.
So you played softball your entire life?
Since 5 years old.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's got my daughter into it and she's loving it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I loved it from the moment. I remember, I mean, this is kind of stupid, but I would wear my uniform every day.
Really?
At home. I'd ask my mom if I could wear it to school, and she'd be like, no, like you wore it yesterday. I loved it.
That's funny.
So yeah, I remember I would cry when it would rain because I knew I didn't have practice. I'd just hound them every day. Like, can you practice with me outside? Can you throw the ball with me? I'm sure my parents just like so annoyed with me at the time.
Well, you think about it, like the whole idea of like you said, you be in uniform, but this idea of like discipline, like it takes discipline to practice for something and be good at it, obviously. So the idea of like having that discipline, you had it as a really young age.
So at 5, I remember I was on a t-ball team. I was one of the younger ones, and I didn't know anything. It was my first sport ever being played. I remember thinking like, I want to be better than these other 5-year-olds, these other 6-year-olds. And I remember they took me up to the next level, like my next year. And it was, I can tell by people's reaction, like it was a big deal. And I remember thinking like, I like this reaction. I want more of this. So I want to get better. So yeah, it was kind of like a moment. I've always been an overachiever though.
It kind of explains a lot now.
Yeah.
Like how, I mean, you and I are very similar on
Yes.
how we do things, and explains a lot though, like kind of like probably why we connected, but like in the academy, and then, you know, the way we both were like trying to like always trying to like be a little bit better, you know, and I think it's interesting. That's funny.
So funny thing is I remember my mom and dad had me at, my mom had me at 16, 17. My dad, you know, my parents were teenagers. And I remember, you know, they didn't have a rule book on how to raise a kid at teenager. So I remember kindergarten through 5th grade, I was obsessed with school. My mom would be like, hey, do you want to stay home today? Like, we'll go to the mall together. And I'm like, no, I do not want Jenny Lee to get ahead of me in math facts.
Is that really a person?
Yeah, I'm still friends with her today.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. But yeah, it was a thing where I'm like, I didn't want her to get ahead of me. Because at the time you would do like timed math facts.
Right.
And I was like at the top. And I knew that if I missed, that she would scoot ahead of me.
You're the oldest of your okay, so your mom was 16.
I think she ended up having me at 17, but I think she was pregnant with me at 16.
I never knew this. This is interesting. So how did that go? Like, as far was she living with your grandma?
So my mom was living with my grandma and grandpa, and my dad was living at his parents' house. And when they found out she was pregnant, they kicked her out. Well, my grandma did.
Wow.
She's very, very religious, hardcore Jehovah's Witness. So my mom ended up moving in with my dad. Yeah, it was like a whole thing. I mean, it sounded like it was a pretty traumatic, like I couldn't imagine dealing, first of all, just being pregnant.
Oh yeah.
Let alone being kicked out, you know.
Have you sat down and like had this conversation with your mom? Like really talked about it?
Yeah.
It'd be interesting to hear like that, just going through that, you know, that age. I know like there are people that go through that. It's interesting because I can't imagine my kids having kids.
Yeah.
You know, like at whatever age when they get that age.
I mean, I'm 41 years old. I still can't even imagine raising a kid. I mean, maybe now, but even 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Let alone 16, 17 years old. So
that's crazy.
I give it to my mom and my dad.
Well, I mean, it kind of makes sense though, why you put so much energy into like doing all these things, doing better, getting better. It's what, you know, you wanted to take, I feel like it's almost like a taking care of your family situation.
Yeah. I don't think I knew it back then. I don't think I knew that my parents were like young parents. I just remember thinking my parents look a lot younger than everybody else, but it never clicked like, oh, you know, we're struggling or we're different.
Right.
So.
Okay. So you went to college on a full ride.
Mm-hmm.
Did you play all 4 years, 5 years?
4 years.
4 years.
Yeah.
And then you wanted to be a police officer. You decided on this little survey thing, I'll be a police officer.
So my junior year, my freshman and sophomore year wasn't really that good. I mean, I was a starter, but offensively, I sucked. They just kept me in there for defense, and then I stayed over summer, both summers, to work with my conditioning coach, just to get better. And then I ended up being like the cleanup hitter. I mean, I literally did a 180 my junior and senior year, to the point where going into my senior year, I got asked to try out for the Olympics.
Really?
Yeah. So I got to stay like in San Diego. They put you up in like, there's an actual training facility in San Diego where all the Olympians try out for the national team. And basically they put you in teams. I don't remember how many people were there, maybe like 40. They split you up into teams and they say, okay, this is your A team, B team, C team, D team. And all you do is just scrimmage against other people, other top athletes, right? And I remember Stacy Newman, you don't know who she is, but she's a pretty big time UCLA catcher.
Okay.
Her and I were on the same team.
Really?
Yeah. And Lisa Fernandez.
Yeah, I don't know who that is. Yeah.
She's like the most well-renowned pitcher from UCLA.
Really?
Yeah.
So how did they just rate you as you're playing these?
Yeah,
scrimmages?
they basically have scouts and they rate like every aspect, speed, accuracy, depending on what position, range, all of that.
So you're kind of playing against your teammates and the other team. Like you're competing against everybody.
Correct. You're competing against everyone because they're only going to take, maybe 2 of each position, maybe.
And you went to the Olympics?
No, because I got through, I think it was it was a 4-day tryout. And I ended up going through 1 day. And at the time, I had an injury in college. I had a bleeding kidney. Yeah, it was weird. So I knew that I was going into it with the bleeding kidney, but there was no physical effects. It was just, and this is going to be TMI, but I would urinate blood like the color of Coca-Cola for a year. But like I said, there was no physical effects. It was just,
What?
Yeah, it was weird.
It wouldn't affect you at all physically.
So I didn't think it, right? My trainer, everyone was trying to figure out what was going on with me in college. Like at one point they thought I was anorexic. So it was weird. They would weigh me in before the game and they would turn me around so I couldn't see my weight. And I kept asking like, why are you guys doing that? And then eventually one was like, they think you might think that you're like fat. And I was like, oh, that is definitely not the case.
Okay. So I'm guessing now what the effects are. What was the effect of this bleeding kidney?
So no, so when I ended up going to the training camp in San Diego, it was intense. You were playing literally all day, all night. And it got to the point where I was like, it was bleeding more and more. And I was so tired. Like I was exhausted, there was like clotting. And I just told my parents were there. And I said, I'm like exhausted. I can't imagine doing 3 more days of this. And I had already known that I wanted to be a police officer. So I said, I need to fix this because I'm never going to pass a medical.
Right.
So I withdrew, I think day 2. We went to USC hospital and then they did like an exploratory surgery and they never knew what it was. They just zapped some veins in my kidney and it stopped.
Really?
Yeah, it was weird. To this day, they think I got like into some, maybe I got into like a collision while I was playing sports. Okay. And it like ruptured it.
So do you think if you would have had that fixed before this training and stuff, then that year that you were dealing with it, like
no,
would it change
I wouldn't
anything?
have made it.
It wouldn't have changed anything.
No, because I went in as a catcher and I had only been catching literally that 1 year in college. I had never caught my whole life, but our catcher had like 4 concussions. And there was a concussion.
I feel like I'm going to take my daughter out of softball now. It was
just, no, this girl was accident prone.
Okay.
But yeah, no, there was no way I was going to make it as a catcher. Like I did not have the experience as a catcher. It just happened to be, I had a really great season and I just happened to be playing catcher, but no.
And you have to try out for this team as whatever position you were in?
Yes.
Okay. It wasn't like you can't be a different position.
No.
Okay. Yeah, it's interesting. I didn't know any of this process. That's interesting how they do that.
Yeah.
So you have how many? So you go through this year and then you travel to the Olympics and you finally get yourself fixed.
Yeah. So I have the surgery at USC. They fix it. And then I start coaching at Mount San Antonio College in Walnut.
Okay.
It's a junior college. It's actually I want to say it's the #1 junior college in Southern California.
That's cool.
Yeah.
You're coaching softball?
Mm-hmm. I was coaching softball. I think I coached there for 5 to 6 years. Loved it. Mentoring kids. Most of them were super talented. They just academically, they were struggling academically to where they couldn't go to a Division I school. Either they didn't pass their SATs or they didn't have a high enough GPA to move on. So they end up there. So the goal for them was do your 2 years or do 1 year, get your grades up and get exposed and then finish out your 2 years at a D1 school.
That's cool.
Yeah.
And did you see that happen a lot where the people were actually going to D1 schools?
Oh yeah. We were, I mean, there were some big schools that they ended up going to, like Washington, Oregon, Kentucky, like really big schools. from a junior college.
That's cool.
And then I was also teaching. I was teaching at Mount Sac.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Oh, I think, what was this, the fire science stuff?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. So it was a firefighting police officer conditioning course.
Okay.
It was awesome because I was like, I not only get to teach it, I also get to participate in it because I'm too trying to be a police officer. So
Right.
I was in great shape. But I was teaching people my own age or sometimes older than me, which sometimes was a struggle, but it was a good time.
I know there's a couple of people, I don't remember who they were, but they said that they took your class.
Yeah. So me and 3 people from our class got picked up at the same time. We were all in the same academy class.
That's funny.
Yeah.
And you were teaching them.
Yep. But then we became classmates.
That's interesting.
Only one remains today.
Oh, yeah. And that was, so 2006 is when we started.
Mm-hmm.
And so you came out of teaching for 5 years after graduating college. You started like, so I was super young. I won't say young. I was 21 when I started the academy. I had 0 life experience. And so I think that you going through these things and being a teacher and like having these interactions probably helped you out. And
maybe a little, but I didn't have that much life experience. I had maybe experience with other people. I think that's what I would say that I had over other people is I understood that I came from, when I went to South Carolina, people were looking at me like I was from Jupiter. Oh, you're from California? Because South Carolina is so completely different. My teammates were, from all over the world. So different cultures. It was odd because I had never dealt with that. They're like, you have an accent. I don't have an accent. You have an accent. So different personalities and learning how to get along with different personalities, different cultures, understanding different cultures, different learning modalities. I didn't know what a learning modality was probably until maybe 5 years ago.
When they started telling us as an FTO. Yeah. It's interesting, but I think that's important though. You say like you come out of dealing with people from different backgrounds and you don't, now I think we just talked about like the idea of you recognizing how important it is to realize how to deal with people who are coming from different areas, different backgrounds. But when we started, we just wanted to be crime fighters. Yeah. Really, let's go out there. It didn't
matter what culture you came from, get on the hood of the car and don't talk.
Yeah. We wanted people to take people to jail for whatever crime. Yeah.
So weird how it's changed.
I know. It's like thinking back on weird, because I still remember the first like time we went out in a car, not like with an FTO or anything, just like you would just drive out by yourself. And I remember thinking like, we can go to any call. Like I was excited just to go to like a report.
We don't have to ask to go to the restroom or to eat.
Oh yeah. Anything about those little things. Yeah. Can I get a snack, sir? Yeah. All right. So, so you're in your career, we start this academy together and, I feel like when we graduated, like you took off pretty quickly, like compared to other classmates, you took off, you got in the way that within the department, you were getting recognized pretty fast as being able to do different things. And I don't know like what caused that or if you felt that way.
Yeah. I mean, I've heard other people say that. And I guess I look back at it and it's like, yeah, I did have some opportunities. I remember like within the first two years of being off probation, my partner and I, we were special detailed to the directed enforcement team. I got to do a narco rotation for like 6 months. And then I went to gangs for another 6 months. And then I did some like redacting for homicide for a little bit. I have no idea why. But I was fortunate and I was happy. But at the same time, believe it or not, some of it was a curse because you got some very, very negative attention. It is a fine line between like people like being happy for you and then a fine line of people like being like, why is this person getting this so-called special treatment that I didn't ask for? I'm just trying to establish my career just like everybody else. Right. But I remember actually my partner and I, when we got assigned to debt, I mean, we felt the hate, we felt the jealousy, we felt how dare these girls, get to be on the directed enforcement team. So we had a conversation. I remember on the phone saying like, do you think it would be bad if we asked them like just to put us back on patrol? And to think of it now, it's like, how sad.
No, yeah.
You know what I mean? How sad that we're scared to have an opportunity and actually take advantage of the opportunity because of other people's perception of what we were.
So I've this has come up a few times in different conversations I've had, but this idea of, in general, like even like talk about recognizing different modalities and things as you get more time on, or recognizing how different it had to be as a female in law enforcement compared to like what I had to deal with. And like, and just so you said, like being, who are these girls? Like, it wasn't like, who are these young officers? It's like, who are these girls?
Right.
It's like the female aspect comes up.
Oh, all the time.
And I even mentioned, like I was talking to another female at work, and she was saying like, it's weird on days that she doesn't get hit on when she's in the field.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, how weird is that to think like, I don't like other officers. I brought that up with another officer. Like I wouldn't even think that like that's a thing. But like as a female, you go through different things than we would go through as males in this profession. And then like you said, like, who are these girls, going like, who in the jealousy? I'm sure you felt that, like you said, you felt that jealousy.
Yeah. I mean, any female will tell you, you have to do triple the work to get as much recognition as a male would get. Or if you make the slightest mistake, that is going to be magnified times 10 because we're a female. But I also think there's these expectations. You're either like an overachieving female who gets everything, or you're, a female who gets everything because she's flirting with someone. Or
you mean gets everything means gets opportunities in the
correct.
department. Okay.
Yeah. I think it's changing now, and I'm happy about it. But I've never heard someone say like, oh, that person, that female, she works her ass off. I think, like I said, it's changed now, but 10 years ago, no, it was like, oh, well, she knows someone, or, she's flirting, or look how pretty she is, or look how good looking she is. And I just remember thinking like, I never want to be in that category. I don't want people to say, I know someone, or I'm, utilizing the fact that I'm a female to get where I need to be. I just want my work to speak for itself. And I think that's how majority of females are in this department. And they understand like they got to do a lot more than you guys do.
I know it sounds weird, and you don't have to pull punches with me. Like,
oh yeah.
And I think it's interesting though. Like, I'm going to say it's like, I think that there are men in the police department, they can get away with, honestly, laziness. You can get away with being lazy and still have opportunities. And like you said, if you're lazy and you're a female, and it sounds like we're lazy. I mean, let's just say, let's say I take the word lazy and talk about, how about you do the bare minimum?
Right.
Okay. So you do the bare minimum, and that shouldn't be thought about as lazy, but really, if you compare to people who are working their ass off, people compare them that way. So let's say everyone does the bare minimum, you versus a male in the department, that you're going to be seen as lazy versus he's like, I don't know. I feel like they might still get an opportunity versus you have to like step it up more to be that.
Well, I think, there's maybe less than 10% of females on the department. So every female is going to stick out like a sore thumb. So if you say, hey, Officer Smith or Officer Doe, whatever the female's name is, everyone knows who that person is because she sticks out.
Right.
Right. Whereas you bring up some male officer, they'll be like, oh, like doesn't really stick out. Right.
Yeah. And I've always thought about the opposite. It's weird because I thought the opposite, like being sticking out as a male officer, as a police officer. Now, a sergeant's a little easier because there's a lot less sergeants.
Yeah.
But like as far as sticking out as a police officer, there's a lot of competition with males. There's a lot of competition in going places, right? Because you have a lot of competition. But now in the opposite, you're saying if you make a mistake as a female, then you're like, oh, they're going to write you off, and you have to basically prove yourself every day. So it's very interesting that
I mean, I'm sure you can think of it. You can think of every female on our department right now, and I guarantee you someone has a story about every single one. You couldn't do that with a male officer. There's just too many of you guys. You guys all blend together. And I don't mean that in a negative,
That doesn't hurt my feelings. You're fine.
Okay. I'm not scared to hurt your feelings, but yeah.
Yeah, you hurt my feelings before. We're fine. We spend 40 hours a day or a week in the car for how many years? I think,
yeah.
That's funny. It's weird to think that was like, I mean, in our career wise, like, okay, so we're about 16 years on, and it was about 2.5, 3 years that we spent together every day.
Yeah.
And but it feels like it was like a blink of an eye.
Totally.
It's weird to think about that time. I still remember, there's so many things I remember about being in the car with you. Like we'd go through scenarios of like, hey, what if this guy runs from us, and then this happens. All right, we're going to do this, and like going through these things. And then the guy wouldn't like run. And we're like, oh.
No, I remember our infamous thing. Okay, today we're going to get a foot pursuit. we're going to get into, I don't know, I think it was like an OIS. We're going to like, we would always say the same thing over and over, like the 3 most critical incidents they're going to happen today.
Yeah. And that's why,
and now
a guy,
I'm like,
I don't want anything.
I don't want any of those to happen.
I know. And the thing is, like, it wasn't like, let's be clear here. When we'd say like there would be an OIS, it was like, hey, a guy would do something to cause it. Like he would point a gun at us or he'd shoot at us. And like we would be
a
doing
scenario that you see in a movie where you're saving someone's life because a suspect is about to cause harm to an innocent bystander.
Right. And I remember thinking like, okay, now there are people who they're hard charging officers out there. And I tell them like, listen, and there are guys have been in scenarios now with a guy with a knife that's really close to them and they don't shoot. And they could have. There are instances where I've watched body camera. I'm like, they could have gone to a shooting, and it would have been justified. They were lucky. They didn't get into a shooting. Then they were lucky, and they were like beating themselves up about it. And I said, listen, as much as like I understand that you could have used deadly force in that scenario, and yeah, you would have been justified, and you were lucky that he didn't stab you. Right now where we're standing, you're safe, and I'm glad that you didn't get into a shooting. I'm like because it's so much headache after you get an OIS. And I'm like, but the idea of like young officers on the street driving around thinking like, okay, these scenarios we might get into today, not really thinking about the years of consequences that comes with.
Yeah.
You know, I remember those like little stories.
I mean, we've both been in OISs, and back then social media wasn't that big of a thing back then. But if you were to do that now, I mean, just think about if your shooting was blasted on social media with just a snippet of it and not the whole story, how that could affect your life, your family. That, I mean, that alone, I'm like, I don't want that for anybody.
I know it's everything is now, and I know we're in a whole different direction in general with law enforcement, but the de-escalation, which we've been doing for years anyway, but the de-escalation stuff, it's like, okay, it's not just de-escalation on like verbal de-escalation. It's like, how can we get ourselves in a position where we do not have to, it doesn't go in the direction of deadly force. There are going to be cases where you can't avoid it, obviously, but it's like, just a headache, like you said, like what's going to happen to your family or what's going to happen to you. And that's definitely a topic I want to get into someday with different people, and this idea of like what happens to you emotionally after an OIS.
Totally.
I think that a lot of people would be interested in hearing that. So you're, let's go back a little bit. So you're young, you're new, you and your partner are getting these opportunities, and you're talking about it kind of being a blessing and a curse. Like you are, I think now you're saying
we didn't want that attention. We just wanted to be like everybody else. These new police officers that are, you know, molding their careers. But instead we were under a microscope. Like, why are they here? Who gave them that opportunity? Who do they know?
Can I ask, was there something you did? Like, was there something that you recognized for? In any way? Like,
I do remember a certain commander had pulled us aside and said, hey, you two have the highest stats. I don't know if it was the division or the city. You guys have the highest stats, and we recognize it and we see it, and we want to give you guys the opportunity to, you know, go to this detail for a little bit and learn some stuff.
See, that's really cool.
It was cool. But you know, now that I think of it, I also think that they were kind of trying to slow us down a little bit and say, hey, you got to do things a little bit smarter, because at the time we were also getting a lot of complaints.
I mean,
a lot.
You and I got a lot of complaints too.
Well, imagine 2 females that are like, you know, at the time hard charging and just, you know, citing, taking people to jail, towing cars. I remember our sergeant pulled us aside and was like, I can't deal with you guys. You guys are just I'm having to answer way too many complaints for you guys. So I think looking back at it now, it was probably them trying to say like, we like the work you're doing, but
slow down.
You got to slow down. You got to be a little smarter.
Okay. So that's interesting. So which I mean, they've done that to different people within the department over time. So like, I would say I looked at it as like, oh, hey, they're getting these opportunities.
Right.
And other people who had time on might be like, why are they getting these opportunities? And then you're looking at it like, oh, cool, I get to try something new. Like they're telling me I'm doing good. And really in their heads, they're like, these two need to slow.
That's what I think.
No, but I'm saying you never know, but it's very likely. And so now you look at it like, hey, like you did get some good opportunities that now I'm sure they molded you and where you are now. But who knows what would have happened if you stuck out on the street and continue to get complaints and, you know, and cause issues for someone.
I mean, I'm sure everyone, as soon as you get a certain amount of time on, you can reflect back to being like, gosh, like, what was I doing? Or I was really naive, or I didn't really know the job yet.
Yeah.
Because people, you can ask people now, like, how many years on do you think you had when you actually understood the job?
I mean, I thought at the time I understood the job right away, but
now,
looking at it, I wouldn't even hire myself at 21. Like,
I wouldn't either.
Looking at myself at 21, I'm like, I can't believe that they sent me out with a badge and a gun to go like give advice to people who had adult children. You know, it's like, and I was barely an adult.
Yeah.
So looking at it now, I'm like, dude, these young kids going into it, I'm like, I even asked these guys in my squad, like, how old are you? And when they're like younger than 24, I'm always like, okay, I got to like really pay attention to what they're doing. It's not just like you have, like you talked about life experience, but you have a little more of a stable head on your shoulders.
Right.
Yeah.
You really truly do see the bigger picture. I would say probably like after like 6-7 years.
Yeah.
Where you're like, oh, okay, I get it now.
I remember we had a use of force and we thought we handled it perfectly fine.
Yep. And I know exactly what you're talking about.
And then that sergeant came up to us and was basically yelling at us right away. Like, hey, like, what the hell are you guys doing? Like, you guys. And we're like, oh, we have 5 years on. Why are you yelling at us? And we were kind of defensive about it. Looking back on it, I guarantee you I probably would have handled that call differently.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it's weird thinking about it. Like, I mean, I don't think we did anything wrong. I just think that we could have done it safer, I'm sure. And then there's things that we could have taken
our time.
Yeah.
We could have asked for more resources.
And stuff that now would guarantee you like legally we have to do those things. But at the time we were like, okay, this is how we protocol. Hey, guys, not listening to us. Let's handle business. And he's threatening people. He's hurting people. Let's handle the call.
Yeah.
And we can do it by ourselves. But yeah, now I'm like, oh yeah, we probably could have definitely taken our time on that.
You know what's funny about that is I know exactly what you're talking about. And I remember I can take myself back like that and be like, yeah, we were so pissed. Like, how dare him? He's just grumpy. And, he didn't even ask us how we were, if we were injured. Now I deal with that with my sister.
Really?
She calls me with these scenarios and like we would call being pissed off about the way a sergeant reacted or what they told her. And I'm a different person now. I see it from a totally different lens. Yeah. And majority, 99% of the time, I'm agreeing with the sergeant.
Well, yeah.
And then me and my sister we don't talk or we argue about it. And I just tell her, you better start seeing this from a different lens quick.
Yeah. It's interesting though. It has to do, like you said, it's probably like a certain amount of time on and you finally start like kind of recognizing like, all right, we need to chill out or like we need to like really take our time on different things. And then especially like we said, like things are changing so much faster right now that everybody I think is kind of like in a stun mode. Like people are even scared to just do police work. Well,
I think when we signed up, just as these newer ones, they signed up to fight crime, to make a difference, to take people to jail. Well, policing is completely different now.
Yeah. There was something that happened recently and I was like, I forget exactly what caused this like dialogue. Oh, I know what it was. So it was like there was something that came up where officers didn't handle a call the way they should have handled it. And I had this like weird, I'm thinking that now the way that politics are that have changed the way policing is, where we've already changed the way we go proactive. Like we're not being as proactive as we used to be because people are scared of they're more likely to get in trouble than they are to have the guy go to jail or stay in jail. So they're doing less police work in general. But when calls for service are happening, they're cutting corners. And I'm telling guys right now, like you cannot cut corners. If you cut corners, you're gonna make mistakes. Yeah. And when you make mistakes, if you're not doing your job to the fullest, it's gonna cause you getting in trouble. So I understand that there's issues with like the booking process or the arrest process or the court process. We can't control that. All you can control is doing your job, and you can't cut corners. And I think that I don't know how to like push that out as much as I can, but like people need to continue to do their job to the fullest, even if it's like, okay, this guy's not going to do any time in jail. It is what it is. Still do your job to the fullest.
I think a lot that has to do with that is just straight up being transparent. When I was a sergeant in the field, because right now I'm special detailed where I'm not like in front of a squad, but any rumor I heard or somebody receiving discipline or talks of discipline, I made sure to tell my squad, hey, this is what I've heard. I don't know if it's true, but this is the reason why it's happening. Don't put yourself in that situation, whether it's, not activating your body camera during a pursuit or whatever it is. I told them everything. So there was no guessing.
Right.
Right. If you got in trouble for something that you didn't do, you know, you would take it and say, oh, I messed up.
And I think that's interesting that you're saying, because a lot of times when we were, especially when we were starting, we never heard of people got in trouble. You would hear like, hey, that guy got in trouble. Like, oh yeah, but no one talked about it.
Right.
And then it was like, okay, maybe 6 months from now, there was a watch report or something that happens. And someone's like, oh, what happened? You're like, oh, that happened 6 months ago or whatever. And I think like, I agree with you. And I do the same thing where I'm like, hey, I heard this already. These are things that are happening. Like obviously without talking about who it is, but these are things that you need to watch out for what you're doing, because this is what's going to happen if you don't do it, or if you do something that out of policy or whatever, it's going to happen. And like you said, being transparent is very important as a supervisor.
I mean, I think that would have prevented, like if you see somebody get in trouble for something, right? Most people will be like, I'm not going to make that mistake because I've seen what's happened to that person, or I see what the administration is doing, or I see the repercussions that it's caused. Some people actually need to experience it for themselves. There's just some people that like that. But for the majority of people, they can see it and they can say, okay, I saw what happened. I'm not going to do it. And if you can prevent 75% of people from making that mistake just by verbalizing it and communicating it, why not?
Yeah.
I mean, I understand, you know, confidentiality with certain cases. I do get that. But when you hear something like, you know, you hear from another division, oh, did you hear what happened to so-and-so and what's going on? You're like, no. I tell my squad, hey, make sure you do X, Y, and Z because you don't want to get in trouble for X, Y, and Z.
Right. Yeah, I agree. I think it's really important. I think it's good that you're doing that. And I hope other sergeants are doing that too. I think that we need to be more transparent.
I mean, police officers, think of all they have to deal with from, I mean, everything, the BWCs, the handling calls for service, dealing with citizens that don't like them, everything. The least we can do is give them a little heads up on, hey, just make sure that you're aware that this is a policy that is in effect and you need to follow it. And if you don't, these are what the repercussions are.
Yeah. Well, and some things are, like we said, are changing so fast that, and the way that we're handling like there's certain things that we call like minor policy violations versus like things that are actually like against the law and things that you can't do.
Right.
But like, hey, now the minor policy violations are getting handled differently in general. And I think people need to know, like, hey, it doesn't matter if it's minor or major. Like you need to know the policy and you need to follow it. Otherwise it's going to cause you problems. And
we're in the Y generation. I know because my sister's one of them. And it's before, you know, I know you and I, we come from different, you know, we're born in different years, but we don't have you actually do have the Y mentality.
You have the Y mentality.
No, I don't.
Okay.
If somebody tells me don't do this, I'll be like, okay, I won't ask why. I'll just say, okay.
All right.
I've been like that my whole life. That's why I wanted to join the military.
I've asked why several times.
Yeah. You ask why all the time. And now you have to give them the why.
Oh no, I totally,
you know what I mean? You have to give, it's no longer because I said it's, let me explain to you why we have to do it this way. And you know, what has happened when we didn't do it this way. And I think some people don't like that aspect of this new day and age.
Like the people being that people who don't like telling someone, hey, just do this.
Supervisors.
Yeah, just do it and then just follow directions because I told you to.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I think in general, it's not just the police officers. Like we're doing why for everybody, community engagement, everything is all. It's why are you doing what you're doing? And I want you to be transparent, and regardless of what it is, this is how we're going to handle it, and this is why. Because if you don't explain why, they're going to keep coming back.
Yeah.
You know, instead of just understand. So we understand.
Look at CLOs, community liaison officers, right? Do you remember what we used to do 10 years ago when there was people on the perimeter asking what's going on? Or
there's memes about it.
Yeah.
It's like, this is like, you wouldn't tell them anything.
Now it makes so much sense. You just tell them what's going on. You alleviate that whole issue. Yeah.
But I think that's different though in the academy. Like we're told in the academy, like, hey, you are in charge of the investigation. You don't want to compromise an investigation. Right. There's like, let's say a homicide or something's going on and you're now on a perimeter. You can't tell people certain things because you're telling a witness something that whatever it is. Right. And we would always have those, like, that's how I would feel.
That was the way we justified it back then.
But that's the way we were told, like
RTOs. No, right. That's the way we were taught. And that was the justification. But now if you think about it, all you say is, hey, there's a homicide that happened here. And we're, this is a containment and it's a crime scene. So you can't enter. And it's going to be about 3 hours.
Yeah.
Just giving them that simple answer.
even the people like with, let's say you arrest somebody and they're like freaking out, you arrested someone. And I'm like, he just committed whatever violence on someone. He had a gun or whatever it is. You tell them right away and they're like, oh, okay. And they walk away.
Yeah.
Versus like sitting there yelling at you for 20
But look
minutes.
how long it's taken us to realize that.
Yeah, because we're stupid. I know to say like, I mean, we didn't know. You know, we didn't know. And now that we know, it's like you can't, it makes sense.
It does make sense.
This is gonna be all over the place, but it's fine.
Fine.
So we're like, okay, so you bounced around, you work different divisions. You and I started working together after, I think it was a couple of years after you came back from the special details and stuff. And it was really fun. Like I really enjoyed working with you.
One of my best like memories
is
during that time.
We actually got, I mean, all transparency, we actually got told we couldn't work together after a couple of years.
Because you asked why.
Because I asked too many whys. Yeah. I asked why. No, I mean, but we're back. We're back. It's fine.
It was a learning experience.
Yeah. I mean, I think that you can't take away those that like primitive, like the first years as a police officer and then your partnerships. Like I remember like working with you and working with different people really early on. And those were probably like my favorite time being a police officer.
Yeah.
And then it took me a while to even like, it was like navigating your career. Right. So how, like for you, when you were working together, we obviously worked together for a couple of years and then you work with some other people. What made you decide that you were going to switch over to like training and then becoming like at the academy RTO? And how did you decide?
Training's always been like my thing. Like even now I'm like, I like the training aspect of not even just our job, but in general. Like I like mentoring. That's why I was, I liked the coaching part of it. And then obviously when I was in the academy, we had 2 female RTOs.
Right.
And I knew, I'm like, I want to be that position. I want to do that. Took me 9 years to do it, but I took all the proper classes and did what I needed to do to get there. And it's just like a thing where I enjoy seeing people move up and get to the positions they want to get to because they've created a path for themselves and they've kind of navigated their way, to get to where they want to be. So, yeah, I mean, training is kind of like what I like to do. Another training we're doing is that we're going to do like a female Biggest Loser.
You're going to?
Yeah. For the department.
Okay.
Yeah. I've sent out a couple text messages, but I want to send out a citywide to just the females. And it's just a thing to keep us, like a camaraderie thing and to work towards a goal. Who doesn't want to lose weight or, shed a couple pounds?
But you guys do a lot. I've seen you post some stuff. Like you do a lot of different like activities. You guys get together a lot. Like
there's a good core of females on the department that, we'll do like workouts together on the weekend, or we'll plan like a girls trip or run a race together.
And then maybe this is something you don't want to bring up, but I'm not sure. Do conversations happen in these girls groups that are like?
I'm trying to be part of our.
I don't want to know. I'm not trying to be part of the girls group. I'm interested to know, like, is there a
to be honest with you, no, there is no conversation. There's no conversation about like, oh, like we are treated differently. But I will say that there are conversations of like empowering one another.
Okay.
Like, hey, where do you want to do? Like, where do you want to go? What's your next move? Those conversations happen. And I think it kind of is like a domino effect of inspiring other people, because you see somebody above you that's promoted or gone to a cool position that, no female has ever been to before.
Right.
And you're like, oh, like she can do it. I can do it, and it just kind of opens the door for the next female.
Yeah. No, that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. We do the same thing.
No, you didn't.
That's funny. No, that's cool. And so, are people taking this Biggest Loser thing? Well, I feel like there's like a double-edged sword here.
It's funny. And these people, if they're listening, they'll know. I sent out a group text, but it's not like the full group text. I want to send out an official email. But 2 people were like, oh, sorry, like I actually am looking to gain weight. And we're like, oh, you little bitch. A bunch of side texting, like they would say that. Or someone was like, I don't think I can lose any more weight. It'll be unhealthy. You know who you are.
Oh, we'll leave it at that. Leave it there. That's funny. Yeah. Okay, so right now you're so you how many years on patrol did you do? I mean, you're technically on patrol right now, but I know you're special detailed.
like truly in the field, I would say maybe a year and a half. I spent a lot of time at the Department Operations Center
As a sergeant?
as a sergeant.
No,
Yeah.
as total though.
Oh, total? Oh, I would say over 10 years on patrol. More like probably 12 years on patrol.
All right. And then now you're now you're at the Department Operations Center.
Mm-hmm.
How you enjoying that?
I mean, you learn a lot there. You learn how the department functions and the functions of every bureau and kind of like the way things actually run, which you can kind of understand it from a patrol perspective. But when you're actually in there and you see the way like the communication goes up, goes down, you know, a lot of learning aspects to that.
I think it's funny. I think I know by only being in patrol and not seeing the other side of the department, we miss out on a lot of information. Like we don't know the processes.
Yeah. And I
like,
was the same way. I mean, literally I remember when I went over there, a female sergeant mentored me. She basically showed me how things were ran. And I mean, she was just running it like it was the back of her hand. I mean, and so now we're working on going to other departments to seeing how their Department of Operations runs, because we're trying to pitch it to the executive team to have a permanent DOC.
Okay. Which is with everything going, because I know you said you guys keep going up and going down, going up. And going
because
down.
you'd see like the DOC's closed. Oh, it's reopened. It's closed. It's reopened. I think if there was like at least a minimal crew that can do messaging for whatever it is, or any like big incident or multiple big incidents that happen, there's a need for the DOC.
And this is interesting because it brings me the idea of like consistency. And I think that like you're saying, like you'll be put in the DOC or you're taken out, put in, taken out, all these different things. And that's for different officers. Like there are officers that go to the field and then they're brought back to some special assignment, back and forth. And the idea of consistency, or like you guys ask for something from patrol and then you don't ask for it, and then you ask for it and you don't ask for it. And it's like, hey, why aren't you doing this? You're like, I don't even know what day of the week it is. You guys are asking for different things left and right, versus having this consistent thing that you've set up, because that goes into like the wear and tear on what's going on in the field.
So it has to do with development. Everyone should know how to do it.
Right.
Or at least the primary functions of it. And we've actually talked about that, like having like either a block in AOTC or biannual supervisor training of like how to run the Department of Operations Center in the event that you get put there, right? Everyone should know at least the primary functions, what to do, what you're in charge of. So we've actually talked about that, and you know,
that sounds fun.
Just like every detail, we should all kind of be a little well-rounded in
I think
some of the details.
It would be interesting to see like people actually being moved in and around different places versus being permanently there for like 20 years. And then no one knows how to do their job, and then they leave. And then new guys,
we lose all the experience.
All experience. They figured out themselves. So after all these years on patrol, and we talked about or before we started recording, you were talking about something you're experiencing personally, what you're going through out of just years on patrol.
Yeah. So actually, as soon as I left being an RTO and I went back to the field, I think I was like year 11, my back started giving me some real issues that I never experienced before, like excruciating pain down my butt and my leg down to my calf, like nerve pain where I couldn't move. So I went to the doctor, and, you know, I had 2 herniated discs, and it's just one of those injuries that flare up here and there. It's put me out, I think 2 times. One of them, the longest, was 6 months. And that's when I had like a 5 millimeter bulge that was like hitting on some nerves that were causing severe sciatic pain. And I'm sure a ton of people have experienced this, because it's primarily from sitting in a patrol vehicle for extended amounts of time.
Not let alone all the pressure with the belt. And
right.
Everything.
I've since got suspenders, and it's alleviated a lot of that pressure. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So I just went back recently to get another MRI to see how it's progressed or maybe gotten better. Cause I'm active with like rehabilitation, swimming, stretching. I have an inversion table. I try and prevent the injuries from happening, but I know like the back injury, especially discs, it's an injury that doesn't go away really.
Right.
So, yeah. So I recently went, and the doctor said like, yeah, you probably need this surgery. It's like, I think it's called like a microdiscectomy. It's a pretty minor surgery, but they're tapping into your back. They basically pull the fragment of the disc that's hitting on your nerves, and you're out for like 6 weeks. But it's a 1 hour procedure. It's an outpatient surgery.
So is it like laser or what is it?
No, it's like like they stick a needle. You have one stitch. And then they basically put a needle in, and then they put a bigger needle in, and it just opens up.
Okay.
It's really cool. The technology is actually cool. And then they have this like little claw that pulls the part of the disc, because they have you over an X-ray machine. So they're seeing it, and they put dye in it. So they see, till they have the disc that's completely removed from the area that it's touched on the nerve. And then they zap it, and then you build up some scar tissue, and it's like a 90% that it doesn't come back unless you re-injure it.
Okay, so 90% that the disc
doesn't herniate again.
But it's possible it can.
He said it's possible if you don't take your 6 weeks seriously. The 6 weeks you can walk and you can do like mild stuff, but nothing strenuous to where you're gonna like do some like heavy lifting or constant bending. I don't think you can be in the car for over 30 minutes, because sitting is like really what puts the most pressure. Excuse me.
How do you feel about this surgery?
I feel like I'm too young to have surgery like that, but at the same time, I know it's not going away, and maybe this is an answer to the problem. But at the same time, I also am thinking about like, I don't want to miss work. There's a real negative stigma about being injured on duty and taking an extended amount of time to fix your injuries.
Right.
Because the people that are legitimately injured, I think, it's just my personal opinion, the people that are legitimately injured and like to go to work, they like what they do day in and day out, they actually don't want to be out of work on their injury, whether they're getting paid tax-free or not, because they understand that it's affecting their team. They understand the negative stigma it has at work, where people think like, oh, he's just faking it, because there are people that are on the other end of that are constantly going out on injuries. I'm not saying they're fake. That's not what I'm insinuating, but I do think that there are people that know some people can work the system. And because of that, the people that are legitimately injured are scared to go out IOD because they don't want that negative stigma attached to them.
Well, and then it's like staying at home. I know people, my team, they've been off on injuries and they're at home and they're like dying to come back. They're saying, I can't do this. Like, I want to be at work, and they get a special assignment inside, and then that's even worse than being at home. It's like one negative thing after the other, and then dealing with the
workers' comp.
Yeah, all that stuff with the workers' comp.
Yeah, I mean, that's another. Most of it is people have a routine, right? They like coming to work. Coming to work is like a relief. Sometimes you have your friends there. Like, I know that's how I feel. Like, hey, I'm gonna have coffee with Adam today. It's gonna be fun. But then you're also thinking about like, what if I am legitimately injured? My doctor says I'm legitimately injured. I know I'm injured, but I want to take a walk because my mental health is failing, because I've been depressed inside. So I want to go take a walk. But now you're worried like, oh, well, is somebody watching me?
Yeah. Like, am I allowed to take a walk? Right. What did the doctor say? Can I look at my orders? Yeah.
Yeah. So
I know someone said they had like a shoulder injury or a back injury. I'm not sure which one it was. And they went to go grocery shopping, and they're like, well, there's like a case of water. They needed water. And like, I'm going to go get someone to pick this case of water up, because they didn't want to pick the case of water up, even though they probably could have done it. Mm-hmm. They don't want to pick it up. And then someone go, oh, you're picking a case of water up. You clearly are fine, even though that might not be the case, but I have to get groceries for my family. So can someone else pick this case of water up? Which is very interesting. Those little things you're thinking about all the time.
Smallest things.
Yeah. All right. So are you nervous about the actual surgery?
Well, I haven't decided if I'm going to get it already yet. I want a couple different opinions.
So just one opinion.
That is just one opinion. So I want to get 2 more opinions to see if they say, yeah, that's probably the best option for you, because he made it seem like it's a no-brainer. Like, it's easy, just do it, you'll feel better. And I'm like, a
lot of things lately have put me questioning doctors. So I don't know.
That's a whole nother show.
But yeah, definitely get a second opinion.
Yeah, for sure.
So if you can do physical therapy, would you do that?
I've already been doing physical therapy. And he said, like, physical therapy is not going to fix that. You don't physical therapy a disc back into its place. Okay. That's what he said.
All right.
But
so you're off twice already for this.
I've been off twice for it. Yeah.
And if they put you off for 6 weeks, you should be fine after that.
Yeah. But then I'm thinking, like, what am I going to do for 6 weeks? Like, I have dogs. I'm going to have to feed them. I'm going to have to walk them. You know, I want to maintain some sort of level of fitness. Okay, I can walk.
Yeah, how are you gonna win the Biggest Loser if you go off for 6 weeks?
Well, I was already thinking I have to, if I'm going to do it, I have to do the Biggest Loser. It would be beneficial for me to lose weight first
Before you go off.
Yeah. But like I said, this is very preliminary.
Wouldn't it be beneficial for you to gain weight first and then lose it? And you
listen,
have more
I'm not worried about winning the money. I really don't. It's just more of like, I just want to feel healthier, and it's much easier to do something like this when you have a group of people that are kind of working towards the same goal.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah.
All right. So where are you at now? Like with where you want to go? So I know you're in the DOC, you're trying to get this. It's fine. You're trying to make this a permanent thing, which would be really, really cool. Like I think implementing something is really cool. Like starting something new.
And it doesn't necessarily mean that like I'm wanting to do this for myself. I just think that there should be a permanent DOC for whoever's working there. I'm only there for X amount of time, and then obviously I'll go back to my normal patrol shift. But yeah, I think it'll be beneficial for anybody to be up there and running a 24-hour operation or 7 days a week type deal.
Well, regardless of if you're there or not, it's still implementing something new. I think the department is kind of, I know everyone I've had this discussion with other sergeants when they get something going and it's like, I started this new project and now it's like implemented in the department. It's satisfying to say like you did something beneficial to help other people. So I think it's really cool. One
of the major things that we really want to find is a staffing application. So that's really why we're going to these other departments to see like, what type of staffing app do you have? Because it can't just be like
fires app. Apparently they have a good staffing app.
The who?
The fire department.
Yeah, because I mean that's kind of the biggest thing is like knowing where people are at all times, whether they're days off, SWAT, IOD, or special detailed. It's kind of like historic the way we do it.
Yeah, we have a lot of paperwork right
Correct.
now. We're killing a lot of trees still.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. There should be better ways of doing stuff.
Yeah,
we should.
So that would be, if we just got that, I think that would make a huge difference. Just being able to like, even if it's on your phone, because that's the way I envision it, like some app on your phone where like literally you check in and it says like, you know, Adam Sturgeon, Patrol, West Division, you know, working from this hour to this hour. Everyone's tracked.
I don't know about
Big Brother.
Yeah. I think I'm going to take away this idea of you tracking us. That's funny. All right. So what's next? What are you envisioning next? What's next in your career?
I mean, I got at least 8 more years. So just learning the position of sergeant. Maybe I would like to go into investigations because I've never been in the Invest Bureau. So learning that aspect of it. Obviously, I'm not going to be an investigator, but supervising an investigative team, learning those tools would be cool. I would like to do that.
Yeah, that'd be really interesting. So touching back on like the being a female in law enforcement, stuff that you've gone through, like have the stigma, and then also like dealing with injuries. Is there anything in any aspect here that you would want to like, I don't know, give advice for a newer officer coming in on like how to navigate that? Like clearly you guys didn't decide when you were early on to not do those details. You didn't go back to patrol. Like until you were done with your details. So you made a decision together, like, hey, we're gonna stick it out and keep working hard. So like, I don't know if that's something you still believe in. It's something else you would give advice to different officers in these similar situations, especially I get in this sense, female officers.
Well, like I said, I have a sister on the department. It's different because I cannot mentor her because I'm her big sister. So pretty much whatever I say, she's going to do the opposite, but let your work speak for itself, period. That's what I would say. Let your work speak for itself. You know, everything else put aside and just put your head down and work. And I think that's going to be the most beneficial, advice I can give somebody. Don't try and, I don't know what's the word I want to use, but don't try to be like everybody else. Don't try to be the male officer that you went to the academy with and try and go his path. Go your own path, work hard, because you will be looked upon differently. You will be looked on with a bigger lens, bigger microscope. So, but it's also in the same aspect. If you are doing positive things, you're going to be looked upon through a bigger microscope as well. So it works both ways, right?
You get more
You'll get more
notoriety,
recognition.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I wish there are certain things I wish even about myself that I would have done differently when I was earlier on, and obviously I didn't have to deal with the challenges you did. But yeah, I think that for anyone that's starting off, like, yeah, just continue to work hard. I think that's important.
I think it's all different types of personalities, right? Like, there's perfectionists that, like, it doesn't matter what someone says, they're gonna go their own way. They're gonna blaze their own path. And then there's other people that are more passive, and they kind of need a little more time to develop that confidence to step outside the box and do something different.
Yeah, I agree.
So what would you tell your younger self now?
I would probably tell myself to listen more. I think that's one thing I've learned. Like, I think that, like, I was, like, obviously you and I both know that I always thought I knew everything, and maybe sometimes I still come across that way. And I think that I wish I would have listened more to, like, the advice, or just idea, or maybe, yeah, the supervisors or different people in the field, like what they are saying, like what they're doing, what they're saying, and why.
Yeah.
And I know it says, like, why ask the why, but, like, really know, like, what causes them to do these things and where they got to where they are. Because I think that by just thinking I knew the answer all the time, clearly I didn't. And there are times where I made mistakes. And I think that I could have navigated those mistakes differently if I would have listened or taken more time to look for the answer better. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I say take more time and listen more. And I think that's important now for, like, even as a supervisor, like in what you are with your people you work with, or even when you go back to the field, is like when they're having something going on, like, you're not going to know what's going on if you're not paying attention. Like, if you're not listening to them, you're not going to know that something's going on. And one thing I've recognized, for me at least, is that I feel like I'm picking up more on the emotional aspects of people. Like, I can sense when something is maybe a little off. And if I'm wrong, I hope someone tells me, hey, fucking, you're off, dude. You definitely have no idea when something's wrong. But, like, I feel like I'm picking that up more now because I'm trying to pay attention more to what they're, like, what's going on with them versus, like, about me. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So what I wanted to tell you was, I think what you're doing, I remember when I first heard about it, I was like, oh, here goes Adam with his new thing that he's got going on, like, kind of like poking fun at you, but not really. But the more that I've listened to your podcast, the more that I've seen the changes that you've implemented in your squad meetings, I think that takes a lot of guts, honestly, especially in this line of this career, right? This law enforcement in general, super critical people. Our way of coping is making fun, right?
Oh, yeah.
So the fact that you stepped outside of what is normal, stepped outside, I'm sure, of your comfort zone, and was implementing things like, asking people their number based on, like, how they were feeling, I think that's huge. And to be honest with you, I envy the fact that you came up with that. And I too want to implement something like that, because I do think it's important. I am somebody who's very empathetic towards people. And I think not getting too much into the weeds of, like, their past and what's going on with them personally, but if you do know something about them personally, I think it helps you better understand what they're going through and why they may be doing the things that they're doing. And I think a lot of people forget about the human side of just getting to know your officers or your detectives or whoever, because they're not going to be open to telling you about, oh, I'm having this issue at home. But maybe if they were comfortable with you, you would say, like, oh, well, that makes sense why they're always late to work.
Right.
You know what I mean? And not to say that that's going to prevent you from giving them some sort of counseling on it, but you empathize, like, oh, I understand. Maybe we can work something out to where we can adjust your schedule or whatever it is.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you saying that. And I yeah, it's vulnerability, like being vulnerable and doing it. And I can't take credit for the idea. I mean, the idea of, like, asking people their number or, like, where they're coming in at. Well, first of all, it's weird for me to take compliments because I was like feeling nervous when you even saying that.
I know,
weird.
I can tell it in your body language.
Yeah, it feels weird. Like, I don't know why, but it feels weird. But so I am taking a life coaching course. And one of the things we do is it's random different check-ins. And during this check-ins, the people that coordinate it, one of the ladies, her name is Pam. She always does check-ins in the beginning, which starts with, like, where are you coming to today? Or she'll ask a question or something. And I just thought that was good because I was like, oh wow, she really cares about, like, it seems like,
yeah,
even if hypothetically she doesn't care, it seems like she cares about what we really are dealing with.
She took the time to go through it.
And so then I'm like, oh, I'll just try it. And, like, I was nervous. Like when I first did it, I was nervous.
Well, when I heard it, I'm like, oh, I'm sure so many people were laughing at him. Like, I'm not doing that.
Well, it's interesting because when they knew I was already taking the coaching stuff,
yeah,
though someone said like, oh, is this one of your coaching thing? And I'm like, yeah. But I think because I was like, I'm doing it anyway.
Yeah.
And I was participating, and I if anyone, I want anyone and everyone to take this on. I don't. It's not my thing. I think it should be all over the place, all over the country, the world, whatever. Like checking in with people in general, your personal life, your professional life. But yeah, there was like, is this part of your coaching thing? And I'm like, well, yeah, it is. But I think just owning it though, owning it, I think is where it's really was where like, what are they going to say? Oh, you want to help people? Like, that's a weird thing. I mean, you can make fun of the fact that I'm like, it's different. Oh, like, oh, I don't want to do this, but it's even funny. The hardest personality in my squad room still participated, and not only participated. I don't know if I told you the story. I might have told you the story already, but I was training a sergeant a couple months later, and you know how we normally do squad rooms where we just automatically say their unit number or whatever, and they went to do that, and the hardest person in the squad still goes, they go, what are you doing? You're messing this all up. I was at an 8, now you're just dropping me down. And it kind of like turned it around, and I gave them a hard time. I'm like, hey, you can't have it both ways. You can't hate it and love it. He's like, well, it's what we do now, so you gotta. And it was just so funny that was the reaction. And I'm like, oh, see, and I don't want it to be like it's like only one person can do it, because I think anyone can do it. It just, you have to want to do it.
I mean, you can just do it in your own way. Like,
yeah, it doesn't have to be a numbered thing.
Hey, tell me something new this weekend.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
And that's one thing now. I don't even really do the numbers lately. I've not been doing the numbers. It's been a few months now. Than when I started it, but I don't always do the numbers. And now it's more of just like a conversation of like checking with certain people.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that it can evolve. And it's just like this is going to evolve. I hope that, this reaches a bunch of people, because I think that it's important, like hearing your story. And I think that we could talk even like another time, we could talk more about just the idea of like really the female aspect. I think there's a lot more there that we barely even touched.
It wouldn't behoove you to bring somebody like brand new and see what their experience is in a completely different law enforcement world right now. Yeah.
That'd be interesting. Yeah. I think all of it. I think all of this is interesting. I think that we can all help each other by our stories, even if it's like one thing you can take away. And I think we're gonna close it out here. Do you have anything else you want to add?
No.
You want to plug anything? I know you're gonna come here and plug anything. Well, you're welcome.
Female Biggest Loser coming soon. $50 buy-in.
You should do it. Hey, you should do it like across. See how many people you can across other.
No, because it's gonna they have to do the weigh-ins like at the academy and stuff.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I really appreciate you coming.
Thanks for having me, Adam.
Yeah, hope you had a good time.
I did.
All right, so this was the episode with Danielle Quinones. I really appreciate her coming out. If you want to find me, you can find me on Instagram at AP_Sturgeon or at Let's Grab a Cup. Also, my website is sturgeonwellness.com, or you can find any links to this podcast and the YouTube. We'll get this on YouTube. So sorry, you're going to be on camera at letsgrabacup.com. And if you have any questions about any of the coaching stuff, you can find my website there, and the links are there. All right. Have a good day. Let me get this little outro thing going. Talk to you soon. Is that it?